welcome. This is India Sense. I'm Gaurie, Dwivedi. Before we get you the headlines this evening, the QR code, viewers, on your screens is what you need to scan to get all the stories, interviews and perspectives of India Sense. Let's get started with the show headlines coming in first. First up, as Myanmar's rebels gain ground at an unprecedented pace, India Sense decodes how an altercation with Bangladesh may very well be on the cards. India-China resumes special representative talks after 5 years. The Asian giants now vow to return to the 2005 agreement, paving the way for possible settlement and resolution to border issues. Milestone in India's diplomatic outreach to the Gulf. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Kuwait this week expected to further strengthen India's ties with the Gulf Cooperation Council. US Federal Reserve's recent shift towards a more hawkish approach triggers widespread reactions in global financial markets, including India. And from Trump's tariffs threat to internal Liberal lawmakers' mutiny, Canada's downfall is playing out in real time, and Prime Minister Trudeau is now living on borrowed time. All right, our big story this week on India Sense continues to be around Myanmar. The story we touched upon, viewers, last week as well, where the clock is ticking and the stakes have never been higher for the region, which includes not just the junta, but Bangladesh and India as well, given how strategic this entire area is. And India Sense told you, viewers, last week as well, and we tell you more about the Arakan Army's advances and what it means for the region. Arakan Army has now seized Muangdow, which is in fact a very important town, and now all eyes are on Chittagong, an extremely important town for Bangladesh. In fact, last week, the world witnessed the fall of Muangdow as Myanmar's Arakan Army claimed victory, and their march seems unstoppable. In fact, they are now reportedly eyeing Chittagong, which is Bangladesh's key coastal city, forcing the Yunus government to reportedly shut down all boat traffic along the Naf River, a move that signals how serious this entire situation has actually become, and few regions actually are as economically important as the Naf River, and we'll tell you why. Fact number one, it serves as a vital waterway for Bangladesh's trade, and in fact connects the entire Bay of Bengal. And that's what you can see right there. The Naf River is the key waterway that's most important, viewers, and that's why we are pointing that out for you to understand the significance of what's happening in that region. In fact, the Naf River is also a major entry point for imported goods, fueling Bangladesh's economy. So if here on the Naf River, if Arakan Army has a post, it has larger both economic and social, political and other important ramifications for Bangladesh. And the third important aspect is that the river plays a crucial role in the local fishing industry that supports the livelihoods of thousands. If this river falls into conflict, the ripple effect could in fact be very significant for Bangladesh's economy. As I said, this is no ordinary border zone. It is a gateway to the strategic St. Martin Island as well, a region that Bangladesh cannot afford to lose. And the Arakan Army's expansion could spell trouble, not just for the local security, but for Bangladesh's larger goals as well. And now, let's focus on why we are talking about this on India Sense, why this region is so important for us viewers, because this impacts India on multiple fronts. Myanmar is India's bridge to Southeast Asia and for greater connectivity for its entire Northeast regions. To stabilize Myanmar, India must use diplomatic engagement, humanitarian support and coordination with ASEAN countries. New Delhi needs to have more engagement with ethnic groups as well, and not just the junta with whom we have been engaging so far. And in fact, listening to what the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson had to say on how things are unraveling right now in Myanmar.
So, yes, we are following developments in Myanmar very closely. We understand that the fighting has intensified and we are following the evolving situation very closely. You would also understand that some time back, because of the security situation, we had relocated our people serving in our consulate in Sitwe to Yangon. But even though the relocation has happened, our consulate in Sitwe continues to be functional.
Ideally, India, Bangladesh and Myanmar can work together to create strong economic and strategic partnerships and relationships. But with Yunus choosing extremist elements over ties with India, New Delhi now needs to engage more to remain relevant and in fact a major player in this region. More so since the flux in Bangladesh is pretty much still going on and that turmoil is set to impact India's northeast regions as well at some point or the other. The first wide-angle story on the show is from Bangladesh. It is the 53rd and 3rd anniversary of Vijay Diwas. The victory India and Bangladesh jointly, in fact, celebrate over Pakistan and birth of Bangladesh. But that has changed now. Bangladesh under Yunus is busy scrubbing history practically. And Yunus's government key aide says India had no role in the war. That's what Yunus government is saying. And neither did Mujibur Rahman, whose Mukti Bahini in fact waged the war after Pakistani army committed mass murder, mass rapes over what was once in fact East Pakistan. And under the government of Muhammad Yunus, this dangerous myth is now being rekindled as part of a larger plan, which includes spreading false rumors, including the claim that Bangladesh military commanders were deliberately sidelined by New Delhi. In fact, there is now this rumor that's going on that General Usmani was not being given his due or was not given his due by New Delhi on purpose, but instead the fact was that he was invited, but his helicopter could not reach Dhaka, where over 90,000 Pakistani soldiers had surrendered because India waged a war against it, and that's how Bangladesh was birthed. But Bangladesh's political climate has toxic anti-India sentiments that are fanned by the once banned Jamaat-e-Islami Islamic outfit, which has now been mainstreamed and is now calling the shots in Dhaka. But it doesn't end there, viewers. Under Muhammad Yunus, Bangladesh is now embracing Pakistan and wants that the two arch rivals and enemies should bury the past and move together. There is nothing that binds Bangladesh and Pakistan except for extreme ideological thinking. And this explains why Bangladesh has waived off the condition of 100% physical inspection of consignments from Pakistan, abolished special security desk at the Dhaka airport that earlier scrutinized all Pakistani passengers. Connect the dots, viewers. What happens when Pakistani goods and people can easily come into Bangladesh? Why would they want that? Now, to now cast India as the villain is not only a distortion of history, but a very dangerous road to take. As we remember our past, we must ask, is Bangladesh truly moving forward, or is it slipping back into the darkness of division? The truth of 16th of December is clear. Bangladesh was liberated because India fought with Pakistan. It defeated Pakistan, and 9,000 Indian soldiers laid down their lives for the birth of Bangladesh. And no extremist Islamist agenda can ever change that fact of history. The other wide-angle story on the show is from Pakistan, which is now standing at a dangerous crossroads. In fact, it's crossed between a crumbling alliance that is unfolding as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and there's a political storm that's brewing at home. For long, Pakistani deep state had deep ties with Haqqani network, but that seems to be unraveling. Add to it the foes at home with Imran Khan knocking on the doors of the deep establishment, looking to, in fact, break that chain completely. What happens next, and how long will the status quo actually survive in Pakistan? This report tells you.
Pakistan finds itself caught between a rock and a hard place. First up, the assassination of Khalilur Rahman Haqqani, a key Taliban minister and senior leader of the Haqqani network. It has sent shockwaves through Islamabad and the entire region. For years, the Haqqani network was Pakistan's hidden hand in Afghanistan, an ally in the shadows used to strike at foes like the Balochistan Liberation Army. But now, with Haqqani's death and the Taliban battling multiple insurgent factions, Pakistan's once dependable proxy is crumbling. Islamabad is scrambling for new allies in Kabul as its influence in the region begins to slip away. As the Taliban is bogged down in its fight against ISIS-K and other militant factions, Pakistan's hopes of maintaining a foothold in Afghanistan are now looking increasingly uncertain. On the home front, former Prime Minister Imran Khan is pushing back against the establishment. From his prison cell, Khan has vowed to lead a civil disobedience movement, citing a litany of constitutional violations and state oppression. Khan has accused the ruling powers of engineering elections, targeting his party, and systematically undermining Pakistan's judicial independence. In his words, Imran Khan says the nation is compelled to start a civil disobedience movement. For Imran Khan, it is not just about reclaiming power. It is about his political survival. Pakistan now finds itself on the knife's edge, facing the threat of growing militancy with groups like the TTP and the ISIS Quran gaining ground, while simultaneously grappling with the deepening political crisis led by Imran Khan. From the fall of the Haqqani network to the growing civil unrest at home, Pakistan's position in South Asia is now becoming extremely precarious. And in this delicate moment, the question remains, can Pakistan navigate the double-edged sword it now faces, or will it falter under the combined weight of its external and internal pressures? The fallout from this storm has only just begun.
All right, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side and tell you what are UK courts saying as far as Sharia law is concerned. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching India Ascends. We now turn our attention to what is happening in Canada and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and why I think he is now on borrowed time. There are three reasons why I feel he is now running out of time. Point number one, reason number one, that the mocking and trolling by President-elect Donald Trump is set to intensify as he tries to expedite Trudeau's departure, since the two men have a very uneasy and difficult relationship. The second reason, Khalistani politician Jagmeet Singh, who's keeping Trudeau's government afloat, is waiting for the 25th of February next year before pulling the plug, because that's when he will complete 6 years in power and will be entitled to pension as per Canadian law. And the third important fact, that the by-election in Cloverdale, where Trudeau's LDP dropped from 39% to a mere 16%, tells you that the writing is on the wall. And this report tells you just how significant the backlash awaits Justin Trudeau.
Ottawa is in chaos as Canada's political ship is sinking. On the heels of a stunning resignation from his number two, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, Trudeau is battling both internal and external fires. Hours before delivering a key fiscal update to Parliament, she threw in the towel. At the heart of the split, a bitter battle over how best to handle the fallout from US President Donald Trump's aggressive economic nationalism, and closer to home, the mess Trudeau's policies have created. Trump's tariffs are a sword of Damocles hanging over Canada's economy. A 25% levy on Canadian goods will hammer a nation already teetering on the edge. And with Canada's deficit now ballooning to 60 billion Canadian dollars, 20 billion beyond Freeland's target, the economy has never been in worse shape. Trudeau's domestic policies are little more than a band-aid on a bullet wound. Canada's economy grew at an annualized rate of just 1% in the third quarter, less than the Bank of Canada had predicted. And future growth is expected to slow down further, a fact that even Trudeau's deputy could not hide. The political winds are already shifting. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, once a key ally, is now calling for the Prime Minister's resignation. However, he shied away from calling for a vote of no confidence. Even within Trudeau's own party, the mutiny is gaining momentum. Liberal MPs like Wayne Long are questioning Trudeau's ability to lead, and some saying it's time for change.
All right, let's get you the top voice segment on the show. We have Jeremy Miller, who is a data reporter of the Washington Post, joining me to really understand the kind of influence that Elon Musk wields and how significant that is. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining me from Georgia. Let me start by asking you, you've been crunching the data numbers. What do they suggest in terms of the reach that Elon Musk has?
Yeah, absolutely. What we found is that Elon Musk's audience on Twitter is humongous and is far, far bigger than any other political figure in the United States. So, for instance, his tweets got 133 billion views, 133 million views between July and December. And that's more than 16 times President-elect Donald Trump, and more than 16 times the audience of all of the members of the US Congress combined. So that's just a huge amount of visibility for one man, who, especially in the run-up to the US election about a month or 6 weeks ago, more than 40% of Elon Musk's posts were about politics. And we've seen him using this megaphone to influence US politics, even yesterday, when he sent a couple of tweets expressing his unhappiness with a bill in the US Congress. And just a few hours later, that bill was withdrawn. And so for someone who is not elected, not appointed, doesn't have an official government role, that's just really novel.
I know what you're saying in terms of an unelected person having that kind of a power, but is this really unprecedented? Because that also will make me ask you the kind of impact this could have in terms of US policy making going forward.
Right. I mean, that's an important question. It's a difficult one to answer with data, but we know that he's been expressing his opinions on Twitter and privately to President-elect Donald Trump, his opinion on appointees, of the finance secretary, treasury secretary, for instance, as well as that bill I mentioned. And his views here are his opinions here are seen by just huge numbers of people whenever he wants to. And whether you agree with him or not, obviously affects how you think about that. But it is really just an interesting phenomenon.
But Jeremy, think about it. He's the owner of the platform. Why on earth will he not use the platform to gain power if he can?
Yeah, I mean, whether you think it's good or bad, that's up to you. He does own the platform, and we have seen him make some algorithmic changes, and to the point where people see a lot more content. If you think about how Twitter used to work 10 years ago, your feed was just the tweets from people who you chose to follow in order. Now it's ordered by this sort of complicated and opaque algorithm that chooses a bunch of tweets to show you. They might be from people you follow, or they might be ones that the algorithm has picked for you. And we know anecdotally that a lot of people who don't follow Elon Musk see his tweets anyways, which is probably where some of those views come from. You could say, oh, well, these are really popular tweets, so it might be that people do want to see them. And that's not a question I can really answer. But it does lead to this result of him getting a huge amount of attention from people who use the website.
All right, Jeremy Miller, thanks much for speaking to me. This is a story that we're going to come back to simply because Elon Musk is said to be so important in the next US administration. All right, it's time to now take a look at a trend that is becoming quite worrying on Wall Street. You have these young bankers who are clocking in 90 hours. They've got Ivy League degrees, but that don't seem to be enough for them. They need to now, in fact, shape up or they will be falling behind. The price is too steep and it looks like they are resorting to everything that they possibly can, including drugs. This report tells you just how significant that number of bankers are.
The pressure on young Wall Street bankers is unbearable. It's no longer just about long hours and high stakes, it's about survival. In the race for success, where the bar is set by Ivy League credentials and brutal work weeks, the toll is immense. For many, the grueling 90-hour weeks are just the beginning. With no weekends off, young professionals are often forced to work 210-hour weeks, pushing their physical and mental limits to the breaking point. And it's not just about numbers or deals, it's about endurance. The problem, the system is broken. While passing out of top-tier colleges like Harvard or Yale doesn't guarantee success on Wall Street, it does come with one exception: constant performance. But the price of admission is steep, and for many, it's too much to handle. So they turn to something to help them survive: Aderall. Once reserved for ADHD, the prescription stimulant has become the drug of choice for junior bankers fighting exhaustion. A little pill, a quick fix to get them through the long hours, the endless presentations, and the sleepless nights. Aderall promises enhanced focus, but the cost is high. Anxiety, insomnia, heart palpitations, and a growing sense of emptiness are the hidden side effects. A broken system feeds broken spirits. And while the pill is easily obtainable through doctors, the real danger lies in the culture it fuels. A cutthroat world where success is everything, but health and well-being come last. Once, cocaine was the drug of choice, the fuel that powered the wolves of Wall Street. Now it's Aderall, a more legally acceptable but equally dangerous alternative. The high may be sharper, the focus more intense, but the crash can be catastrophic. And who's left standing when the lights go out? The new wolves are still chasing the dream, but in this unforgiving world, it's unclear whether the dream is worth the price they're paying.
All right, quick take segment on the show. First up, the United Kingdom, the land of Magna Carta, the birthplace of secularism, has ironically become the new hub for Islamist influence in the West through the shocking rise of Sharia councils. The High Court has legitimized one such council, citing a fatwa issued by the controversial preacher Haytham al-Haddad, a man whose hardline views are hardly aligned with modern British values. A recent investigation reveals that Britain is now the epicenter for Sharia courts in the Western world, with 900 cases a year and expanding influence across Europe and North America. Secular campaigners argue that this is not just a misstep, it's a blatant erosion of the principles that once defined the United Kingdom. Ironically, in the land of free speech and secular law, the echoes of Sharia are growing louder, and with each fatwa, Britain inches further from the values it once held dear. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.